All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this NBA debate has been making the rounds over the last couple of days. Max Kellerman of the show First Take decided that he was going to declare that, in his view, Kawhi Leonard is quote-unquote more clutch than Kobe Bryant. Now, he made an extremely clunky assertion based on the understanding, and I agree with him to a degree. I just don't agree with the topic of his attempt at a debate between the two players. I believe that his overall sentiment is that Kawhi Leonard is a better overall player than Kobe, which I agree with. And that, of course, is going to be very controversial because, as we all know, Kawhi does not have enough data to back up that point quite yet. He's really only been an exceptional player for the last 2.5 seasons or so. So there's just not enough substance to bring forth a notion like that. But I know why Max Kellerman did so. It's because for many years he was based out in the LA area, and he got to witness Kobe night in, night out, have terrible games with poor shot selection, alienating his coaches and his teammates. Kobe, as I've always stated, is the most overrated all-time great player. He's an all-time great player, no doubt about it. But he's the most overrated all-time great player of all time. No doubt about it. Is he a top 5 player all time? No. Is he top 10? No. Is he top 15? Yes. On my list, he's top 15. Maybe topping out at around 11. But he does not crack the top 10. As I've always stated, my top 10 is Michael Jordan, Kareem, Bill Russell, Magic, Bird, LeBron, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon. In no particular order necessarily, even though the top 5 are my top 5 definitively in order. From 6 to 10, no particular order. Just outside of the top 10, you have Isaiah Thomas, you have the Dr. J's, you have the Moses Malones, you have the Kobe's, so on and so forth, Oscar Robertsons and John Havliceks and Jerry West and those type of guys. But that part is very fluid as well. My point being is that Kobe fits into that 11 to 15 range, not 1 to 10. Sorry, but no. Now, if we're going to make a list of the most naturally gifted and most spectacular players, meaning the most watchable players of all time, Kobe's top 5, if not top 3. Now, if we're going to make a list of the most well-rounded overall players, Kawhi Leonard is above Kobe on my list. He's above Kobe on my list, but he has not accomplished anywhere near enough to be placed above Kobe. And this is why you're going to see the reaction to Max Kellerman's statements that you're going to see. But this Kawhi Leonard, the way that he makes decisions on the basketball floor on both offense and defense, Kobe Bryant in his best days never played basketball on the level that we're seeing Kawhi Leonard play right now on offense and defense. I don't care if you talk about the 0-1 series against the Spurs or the Sacramento Kings. I don't care what you're talking about. The 0-9 series against Utah, whatever you want to name. Right now, Kawhi Leonard, with his decision-making on the basketball floor, how proficient he is, how everything is done within the flow of the game on both offense and defense, Kobe has never played as well as this dude is playing right now. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
The one constant in this Raptors-Sixers series and these entire playoffs have been the stellar play of Kawhi Leonard. He's been incredible, averaging over 32 points a game for the entire playoffs.
Let me say this very quickly. With the way in which Kawhi Leonard's career is trending, he's about 26 years old right now. If he can put together another 7 or 8 years on this level and upwards, meaning 27, 28 points per game, shooting around 48, 49, 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 85, 90% from the line, and also be the best defensive player at his position and maybe at any position for the next 7 or 8 years, you can say that he had a better career than Kobe Bryant when it comes to peak value. Career value, no. Kobe had an earlier start, and he's probably going to have a later finish. But Kawhi, from now at 26 to about 33, 34, 35 years old, if he keeps this up, will have a better peak than Kobe Bryant. Yes, he will.
Against Philly, he scored 33 or more points in every game, which prompted this comment from teammate Norman Powell to the Toronto Star. That man is Kobe. He's a superstar. He gets after it. He doesn't care who's in front of him. He knows what he's worth. He knows what he can do. Sidestep fadeaway, nothing but net. That is Kobe right there.
This is obviously a Kobe Bryant fan. And this is something that Kobe Bryant fans will say. They will attribute Kobe Bryant's offense to being quote-unquote nothing but net, when in reality, Kobe Bryant had the most misses of any player in the history of the NBA. These are just facts. Not feelings, not emotions. A lot of Kobe's fans get upset with me when I start stating facts about their guy. Once again, Kobe is an all-time great, no doubt about it. Top 15 player, no doubt about it. But this notion that Kobe Bryant was someone who, whenever he shot the basketball, was nothing but net. Those are the fanboys who grew up in the early 2000s.
Jay Will still here with us.
Still here shaking my head as well.
Yeah. Max, I'm coming to you. Is Kawhi actually a better player under pressure than the great Kobe Bean Bryant?
Yes.
Max said that quick, too. Max is someone, he got to watch himself because he says certain things that are going to piss people off. So if he cares about that, he has to be careful. He's saying that Kawhi Leonard is a better pressure player than Kobe Bryant. When it comes to proficiency, yes. But Kawhi's file is not filled enough yet for us to make that statement. There's just not enough empirical data. We have to give him another 7 or 8 years.
Yes, he is. Kobe, no one had more heart than Kobe. Like, Kobe's not scared of anything. But because Kobe was the best bad shot maker who ever lived, he would take a lot of bad shots under pressure.
Agreed.
Because he knew he could make them. But just look at how often he made them compared to what Kawhi is doing.
Max, I have to stop you there because this is a major problem. And as you can see, when we look at Jason Williams' face and Stephen A. Smith's face, these are how fanboys react to facts, okay? There are a lot of old-ass fanboys out there, 38, 40, 45 years old, fanboys. They don't pay attention. They don't pay attention to stats. What makes Michael Jordan the greatest player of all time, at least in basketball, is that he's probably the only player whose mythos matches his stats and the outcome of his performances. He's the only one. And that's why people get so frustrated. Oh, your only argument is 6 out of 6, or, Jordan scored these points and blah, blah, blah. Why is that? Because the only way that you can compel someone to believe that another player is better than Jordan is by trying to grade these other players on a curve, because you know that the overall effect of Jordan that's tangible is far easier to prove than the tangible effect that another player would have had in the outcome of games. That's not even going into individual per season stats, so on and so forth. But just getting back to Kobe. Kobe is one of the least proficient and least efficient players in crunch time in the clutch in the history of the NBA. But he just kept shooting. And that's part of the Kobe mythos, is that he never stopped shooting. He was never scared. And his fans conflate that with this notion that he was this unbelievable clutch player who made all of his big shots, and he did not. He just did not. Kobe is a player who I liken unto Kawhi Leonard. And what I mean by that is that when you follow a transcendent player who made the fans feel euphoric, sometimes they're searching for someone who can fill that same role in their heart. After Muhammad Ali retired, boxing fans were looking for someone who could make them feel the same way that Ali made them feel. So they kind of split the difference between Larry Holmes and Kawhi Leonard. Larry Holmes was the heavyweight champion. He kind of sort of boxed like Ali. He had the great jab. He tried to move around the ring, circling to his left like Ali did, so on and so forth. But the fans never really bought into Larry Holmes in the same way that they did Ali. But the fans never quite really bought into Larry Holmes in the same way that they did Ali, because Holmes did not have a lot of, the little intangibles that Ali had. He didn't have the charisma. He didn't have the wit, the wordplay, the looks, or what have you, to market himself the same way that Ali did. So they split the difference between Larry Holmes and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is still venerated to this day based off of the carryover from the Muhammad Ali era. Kobe Bryant was the recipient of being the carryover or the carrier of the Michael Jordan legacy after Jordan left. They were looking for someone to fill that role. And that's why people assume that Kobe was this unbelievable performer in the clutch when he really wasn't. But he inherited that notion, or he inherited that title from Michael Jordan. And it's so difficult, it's so traumatizing for his fans to accept that he was not what he was cracked up to be, because they've been brainwashed with this notion of Kobe being the closest thing to Michael Jordan. Everything with Kobe is always aligned to Michael Jordan. And that's for mind control purposes.
Kawhi takes higher percentage shots and makes them more often under pressure than Kobe Bryant did. I'm not making it up. When you try to...
But you know what, Max Kellerman, you're not making that up. I agree with you. But you're making the wrong argument. The question should have been, is Kawhi Leonard a more proficient player than Kobe Bryant? Not, is he a better clutch player? Even if he is by the numbers, it's just that his file is not big enough. He doesn't have enough data for us to make that claim right now. Even though I agree with you. I think that Kawhi Leonard, over the course of the next 7 or 8 years, if he plays at this level, you can say that Kawhi had a better peak than Kobe Bryant did.
Try to deride the statistics. I know you're both going to just assert that I'm wrong. But when you say, oh, just can't look at the numbers, you understand statistics are records of events. When they say in late and close games, Kobe Bryant shot inefficiently, his team got less efficient, those numbers are records of events that occurred. We could go back and watch the video and you will see they all occurred.
Because Kobe Bryant was one of the more inefficient great players in the history of the NBA. But as you already stated, you know that you're going to, you know that the rebuttal from the two of them is going to be based totally in emotion.
Kawhi Leonard, under pressure, ain't missing. He's already been a Finals MVP, and that was before he was in his prime. Kawhi Leonard is also playing defense under pressure. Like, Kawhi is one of the greatest, he's in the conversation for greatest defensive player who ever lived.
I'm not quite sure about that. I would say that if you were to comprise a list of the greatest defensive players of all time, or greatest two-way players of all time, he'd definitely be up there. He'd be top 10, no doubt about that. But to say that he's on the list of arguably the greatest defensive player ever, I don't think that anyone will ever be able to surpass Bill Russell for that title.
You don't even really think about his offense, except right now, he's shooting 60% from the field in the playoffs. A former Finals MVP before he entered his prime is shooting 60 in the playoffs. Best offensive player, including KD, who's also in his prime, but Kawhi's not playing with Steph and Clay.
Agreed.
So, under pressure, yes, Kawhi is better than Kobe was.
Well, if by under pressure you mean in the last 2 minutes of a game, that's one conversation. If by under pressure you mean during the playoffs, that's a whole other conversation. Either way, it's way too early in Kawhi's career to open up that type of conversation. You just can't do it right now.
I think that's ridiculous. It's hard to get into why, because I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to be respectful.
Max.
Here's my point. Here's my point. When you look,
Jason Williams said, "Wow."
Look at numbers, you can make an argument in favor of Kawhi in a variety of ways. But let me tell you something. When you sit up there and you say statistics are a record of history of what actually transpired, that's not always the case. You know, I remember one time, Max, I know players, for example, you know, you played well in a particular game or you played poor in another game because you had something going on at home. There's a lot of things.
Sound like an excuse. What a pathetic attempt at a retort. Well, we can't just look at stats because, well, I know players who have personal problems at home and that's why they played poorly. If you're going to respond to an analytics contention, at least put one forth that has nuance. Say something like, if you're going to use numbers and stats, we also have to provide context to the situation. How many minutes was there left in the game? How many all-stars did he play with? What was the shooting percentages of the players around him at the time? Something like that. But for you to try to make the excuse that we can't just look at numbers because a certain player had an emotional problem or personal issue at home, I mean, give me a break. That's probably every player in the NBA.
Things that go on that somehow, some way infiltrate the proceedings to some degree and get in the way of what's transpiring. Here's what I will tell you. I think you are completely focused on what you've seen from Kobe and the tail, and I don't know that to be the case, but I believe that. I'm thinking about the Kobe Bryant that won 5 titles. I'm thinking about
Yes, the Kobe that won 5 titles, and on 3 of them, the best player on the team was not him.
About the Kobe Bryant that only scored 28 in an overtime win en route to LA's first title when they beat Indiana. But I recall Shaq fouling out, and everybody was in an uproar, and Kobe walked over to him and said, "I got it."
Great performance. That was the standout finals performance of Kobe Bryant's career, by the way. Was that performance in Game 4 against the Indiana Pacers. For that one game, that was a standout performance. That was not his best finals per se. His best finals was against Orlando. But when people talk about Kobe's clutch performances in the finals, that's all they talk about because there's not much else. He was terrible in that series against the Pacers. His fans will use the excuse that Jalen Rose put his foot under Kobe's foot. But how many great finals performances did Kobe really have? He was terrible in 2010 down the stretch of Game 7 against the Celtics. They'll say, well, he was hurt. He had a myriad of injuries. So either you're going to tell me that he's clutch and proficient, or tell me that he's not. Don't tell me that he's clutch, and then when you bring up the facts, you claim that Kobe was hurt or maybe he had personal problems. I don't want to hear that shit. The reality of the situation is that Max Kellerman should have worded his contention differently. He should have said that Kawhi Leonard is trending towards being a more proficient player than Kobe Bryant.
When you talk about clutch numbers, people might be talking about, oh, what transpired in the last 2 minutes, or the game is within 3 points, and what did you do at this particular moment, or Kobe's a volume shooter. I'm thinking about the process that transpired that led up to those moments where Kobe carried you. I'm thinking about a Shaquille O'Neal who leaves as the most dominant force in the game, and Kobe takes over the Lakers and still guides them to 3 consecutive trips to the finals and back-to-back titles with Pau Gasol and Andrew Bynum and guys like that. I'm thinking about I'm thinking.
Thank you, Max Kellerman. Stephen A. Smith tried to do what many Kobe Bryant fans attempt to do, to pump up their guy, and fans of other players do. They want to tear down. They want to tear down the other players on the team. Pau Gasol is going to the Hall of Fame.
I'm thinking about those things, and then I'm saying, because I'm gonna leave some of this to Jay Williams to break down, but I'm gonna say this to you, Max. When we talk about Kawhi Leonard, nobody's taking anything away from his greatness. Nobody's taking away anything from his skill set. But when you were playing with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, yes, you showed up and you helped propel them because you defended against LeBron, and obviously you played decently as well. Kawhi Leonard just started averaging 20 points per game a couple of years ago.
Because he was only called to average over 20 points a game a couple of years ago. Kawhi Leonard's career is trending upwards. His offensive game is trending upwards. That's why, once again, this is not really a debate that should be had. But I know why Max Kellerman is doing it. He's doing it because he's not particularly a fan of how Kobe Bryant gets marketed as this super clutch player when he really wasn't. But Kawhi's not the guy that you want to utilize as the offset to Kobe Bryant.
Kawhi Leonard just became an offensive force a couple of years ago. We haven't seen Kawhi Leonard have to carry the load that Kobe had to carry and ultimately elevate the Lakers. We
when
haven't
Kobe
seen
was
Kawhi Leonard
Kawhi's
do
age,
that
he
yet.
had 0 finals MVPs.
I'm not talking age. Because remember, Kobe came straight out of high school.
Right, so that means that he had more years for him to be able to accumulate individual accolades, and he still didn't do it.
So we're not talking age.
Right, so he had more time to get...
Absolutely. Good catch, Max Kellerman.
To get finals MVPs.
All I'm trying to say to you is, wait a minute here. But Kobe did what he did like his 4th year in the league. For crying out like it's game in the 96.
He's more talented than Kawhi.
Listen,
Right.
We heard you.
Stephen A. Smith getting mad. Listen, we heard you. There's no more Kobe fan. I'm sure there's going to be somebody in my comment section. You know, I can't stand you when you talk about Kobe. I love when you talk about everything else except for Kobe.
What I'm saying to you is, Kawhi has not been placed with that onus on his shoulders and shown us that he could do what Kobe has already done to even be worthy of being in this conversation yet. He hasn't done it yet.
I hate every time I come on the show. I feel like I disagree with you, Max. Every time I come on the show, I disagree with you. I don't know why. It just naturally works out that way.
Don't hate it. Welcome to my world.
So 5 months ago, or 4 months ago, did you think that Kawhi was better than Kobe?
Now, did you see what Jason Williams just did there? The question is Kawhi a better pressure player than Kobe? But Jason Williams heard it as Kawhi is a better overall player than Kobe. Maybe that's because in his subconscious mind, he sees his idol Kobe Bryant getting assaulted by Max Kellerman in a certain way. Or maybe he's just reading it the same way that I'm reading it. That Max is really saying that Kawhi is a better overall player than Kobe. And I agree with that at peak for peak. When I'm talking about all around play, not how spectacular the players are. We're not talking about the spectacular factor. We're talking about how well-rounded they are. Which player would you rather pick to utilize in your system? Who's going to make the better decisions out there on the basketball floor? That's the real conversation. That's why I would take peak Kawhi even over peak Kobe. It's close, but I still would do so. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get very, very upset by that. They're going to claim, what are you talking about? Kawhi Leonard is a better defensive player than Kobe Bryant ever was. Now, when it comes to offensive skill set, we all know that Kobe Bryant was non-perennial. But his offensive skill set was so diversified that he leaned on his scoring way too much as opposed to distributing or moving the basketball. People say that Kawhi Leonard is not a great passer. No, he's not a great passer when it comes to making the pass that leads to the assist. But he gets a lot of hockey assists. That's why his shooting percentage is so high, because he does not force shots like Kobe Bryant did.
Was better better under
or
pressure?
More clutch, better under pressure than Kobe. Did you think
I thought it was an open question. I think Kawhi is still essential.
So now what Kawhi has done in one playoff series has confirmed to you that...
Well, not quite. We saw Kawhi Leonard dominate in 2017 prior to him getting hurt against Golden State. We've also seen him dominate in the first round of these Eastern Conference playoffs, and he's been super dominant against the Philadelphia 76ers. I want to see what happens when they square off against the Milwaukee Bucks. That's going to be a titanic matchup. Once again, the four teams that emerge, well, I can't say the four teams. Right now, of the teams that are left, there are four players who are vying for that mythical throne of being the king of the NBA. That being Kawhi, Giannis, James Harden, KD. So one of them is going to emerge.
That he is more clutch than Kobe Bryant. One playoff series.
What I am measuring...
Because this sounds like a case of recency bias to me.
Well, okay.
That's not a bad point.
Kobe Bryant, there's a big misunderstanding about Kobe under pressure.
Agreed.
Everyone calls him the closer. In fact, it has been demonstrated, and like people who have looked at it, we all got that great feeling about him because he could make bad shots.
And he did a great job of mimicking Michael Jordan. You're leaving that part out. And that's why, once again, that's why they attribute so much quote-unquote clutchness to Kobe, because it's a carryover from the Michael Jordan era.
So he did it. He wasn't scared. But in fact, he got less efficient, and his team got less efficient in the closing moments of games when Kobe would so-called take over. And that's the opposite effect that Kawhi has. So, as Kawhi is asked to do more and more offensively and carry more and more of the load, I would expect for his efficiency to go down. But it's gone up, Jay. He's even more efficient than he used to be while asked to do more. And he's not playing with Shaquille O'Neal.
Ding.
So I want to see Kawhi Leonard do this for another 5-6 seasons.
I agree with that. That's more than a fair point. And that's the reason why Max Kellerman should not have brought this up. It's almost like when you're at your homeboy's wedding or something like that, and you know that the marriage is not going to work, you don't say that to him. If you really thought that the relationship between him and his girl was not going to work, you should have told him that from the first time that he introduced you to her before they got married. Once you're at the wedding, you be quiet and let things play out. And after he starts to call you talking about, I can't stand this bitch, then, maybe y'all can commiserate. But in the midst of it, you got to fall back. Right now, what we're seeing from Kawhi Leonard, or at least what I'm seeing, is something that's trending upward. It's like a stock that's trending upward. We have to give it a chance to mature before we can make these type of decisions or assertions on where we're going to rank him above or below Kobe. But I do believe that Kawhi is going to be so proficient over the next 7 or 8 seasons that once he's done, we're going to be mentioning him with the Dwayne Wades, the James Hardens, the Clyde Drexlers, the Jerry West, and the Kobe Bryants as players who are in that mix for the second best shooting guard of all time. Right now, it's certainly Kobe. But I think that after Kawhi's finished, there may be a conversation.
Fair. And so you're telling me for this small little microcosm of the frame of work, you're comparing that against the full body of work of Kobe Bryant.
No,
you're saying that's more clutch right now.
No.
Well, first off, when we're talking about the full body of work of Kobe Bryant, we're really talking about an 11-year period from, say, the 99-2000 season to the 2009-2010 season. If you want to trickle it over and include those last couple of years before he tore his Achilles, you could do that. Especially that 2012-2013 season, the last season before he tore his Achilles. He was exceptional that year. And in the clutch, he was exceptional. But that was in the aftermath of that procedure that he was the recipient of over in Germany. But once again, when we're talking about Kobe Bryant, we're talking about an 11-year period from the 99-2000 season to the 2009-2010 season.
No, you just said that he won more. He got Finals MVP at an early age than Kobe.
No, you're turning it into an argument about career accomplishments. Obviously, I cannot do that.
I'm talking about being clutch.
I'm talking about
what being clutch to me is. It has to be sustained over a legitimate amount of time, and you have to own that kind of. You have to carry that weight during that same amount.
Well,
I agree with that.
Kawhi hasn't done that yet. What's the point in that conversation? We're talking about what we've seen.
We're talking
about what we've seen from Kawhi so far. Is that better or worse than what we'd seen from Kobe to that point in the clutch? And I'm telling you, Kawhi is a better clutch performer than Kobe Bryant. Tell me about
Max Kellerman, I'll raise you on that. Not only has Kawhi Leonard been a better clutch performer up to this point at 25, 26 years old, he's been a better overall player, I would say, in his peak from about 2015 to now than Kobe Bryant was, say, in that same time period at around the equivalent age. Even if you want to talk about the seasons where he averaged 35 a game, 32 and a half a game, he was more spectacular, yes. More spectacular. But as a player, no. I'm sorry, but no.
Tell me about those clutch moments.
Okay, how about this?
No, I want you to tell
Jay Williams asked Max Kellerman, tell me about those clutch moments from Kawhi, and Max Kellerman couldn't do it. That was a trap, Max Kellerman. If you're going to look up stats and numbers that said that Kawhi Leonard has been better in the clutch than Kobe, then you should have brought up examples as well. Of course, everybody's going to remember Kobe's iconic moments of quote-unquote clutchness. I mean, we could rattle them off. As Stephen A. already stated, there was Game 4 against the Pacers in 2000. There was also the game winner against the Phoenix Suns in the playoffs in 2006, so on and so forth. You could think of a whole bunch of them when it comes to Kobe. With Kawhi, it's much more difficult because Max Kellerman is describing clutch or pressure player as who performs better percentage-wise in the playoffs. So it's two totally different distinctions or two distinctively different definitions for the same term.
I want you to truly tell me about.
Let's talk about.
Let's go.
I'm doing it now.
Okay, tell me about those clutch moments that you saw. In your mind, you said that moment right there is why Kawhi is more of a clutch player than Kobe Bryant.
Oh, you want moments like shots he hit?
Yeah,
okay, tell me the moment. Tell me the moment. Tell me. Okay, I will tell you.
Stephen A. Smith just told you about a moment
when Kawhi.
Max Kellerman has allowed himself to get sucked into a fanboy argument. Jay Williams said, tell me the shot that gave you that feeling that Kawhi Leonard was clutch. That's what fanboys do. They go by their feelings. This is Max Kellerman's fault, though, because he brought out a conversation that should not have been brought out yet.
Kawhi Leonard was the best player on a Spurs team that won the championship, and he was the guy guarding LeBron James.
He's guarding. He's not making clutch shots.
One-on-one, he was also making clutch shots, by the way. Of course,
you're telling me about the first thing coming out of your mouth is guarding.
That's okay.
He's a great two-way player.
That's okay, but that's part of it. But wait a minute, that's part of it. You're playing both sides of the court. That's one. Two, when last seen on the court before this year, he was up 20 points at the half against the Golden State Warriors when he got hurt. So the question was, like, we see Kawhi doing this. Then the question was, when he's back healthy, what's he going to be like? Well, I don't know. So far, he's an MVP candidate. And once the postseason came, he's outplaying the world, including your guy, Kevin Durant.
Well, Max, you're talking about futures, though. It's like looking at a stock and saying, this is where the stock's going to be if he keeps going, of course.
That's exactly what he's doing. And that's why you have to be patient with Max. But I understand what he's trying to allude to.
According to this efficiency.
You're turning it into a career accomplishment. Okay, I can't do that for a while.
But you can't tell me about those clutch moments. You're telling me he scored 20 points or he cut down this defender. You're not telling me about the moments where you sat there and you said, Kawhi Leonard has arrived.
So let me. So in other words, the way you judge clutch.
Well, I'm not quite sure if I can agree with that, because for all intents and purposes, the basketball world sat back and said Kawhi Leonard has arrived when he won the MVP for the 2014 NBA Finals.
Clutch is certain iconic moments in your mind.
Clutch.
The way I judge clutch is consistently under pressure when it matters most. For example, fourth quarters. Do you play better and does your teammate play better, or do you play worse and does your team play worse? A great bad shot maker will leave you with iconic moments in spite of the fact that consistently his team can get worse when he's on the floor late in games.
I'm sorry, Stephen, I just jump in here because I've never heard the word clutch applied to a team aspect.
Well, really what Max is saying is that clutch players will be able to elevate their team's play in big moments. For example, how Michael Jordan can presumably will a Steve Kerr to become a better version of himself and make a clutch shot in a big game. Or how Michael Jordan can quote-unquote will John Paxson to make a clutch shot in a big moment in a big game. That's what Max Kellerman is trying to allude to. The problem is that they've taken the term clutch and it's so open-ended. You have to define it. Max Kellerman should have defined what he means by the term clutch just prior to making his official argument, but he failed to do so.
Russell's not clutch. Welcome to my world.
Wait. Hold that thought, Stephen. Hold that thought. We got to pay the bills quick.
Okay, so they're back now, and Jay Williams is going to get so frustrated that he's going to walk off the set because he just could not deal with how one of his idols, Kobe Bryant, is being assaulted by Max Kellerman. He just can't handle it, and this is what fanboys do. So let's pay very close attention here.
All right, Jay extending his schedule so he could just be here for part of this debate. We got a couple coming up, but if you guys are just joining us, the earlier topic is who's better under pressure? Is it Kawhi Leonard or Kobe being Bryant? Max says Kawhi, Jay and Stephen A say that it's Kobe, and Stephen A, you're up now. Floor is yours.
Here's the deal. And I'll go back to Jay and Max on this because I'm really annoyed by this discussion, to be quite honest with you, because it makes absolutely no sense. If you're an analyst...
No, it makes sense. It's just that if you're a fanboy, you're going to get very upset by it. It makes sense to people who are predictive thinkers or forward thinkers. Max Kellerman makes these type of statements many times on this show. I have no problem with him being a forward thinker or a predictive thinker. My issue with Max Kellerman tends to be that he likes to engage in hyperbole. He makes statements like Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be the greatest player of all time, or Russell Westbrook is the greatest player that he's ever seen, or LeBron James is light years ahead of everybody. He makes these unnecessarily inflammatory because they're overly hyperbolic statements. When all he has to do is make astute observations, and he'll be able to make the same type of impact.
Analytics dude, sure, you can sit up there and use the word clutch moments as they describe it and go with that. I'm going to use my eyeballs. I don't understand how Max doesn't use them with those eyeballs that he has available to him, but that's neither here nor there.
Stephen A. Smith, you chose to use your eyeballs when the ESPN analytics team told you back in 2014 that Kobe Bryant was not even going to be a top 50 player. You got extremely upset, and he ended up being worse than a top 50 player. He was somewhere in like the mid to late 70s. Then the next season, they stated that both Carmelo Anthony and Kobe Bryant were not going to be top 50 players. You blew a gasket again, and they both ended up being worse than that. So it's very obvious that, when people like to go by the eyeball test, it's because they're fans. And fans cannot be trusted to make real observations about real issues.
Here's the situation. Kawhi Leonard was a part of Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the San Antonio Spurs system led by Greg Popovich. He won an NBA Finals MVP primarily because of his defense. Not to say he didn't make shots, but it was primarily because of his defense against LeBron James in the 2014 NBA Finals. What did they do the next year, Jay and Max? They got bounced out in the first round. What did they do in 2015, 2016 when it was clearly Kawhi's team? They went 67-15. They went 40-1 at home and got their butts waxed by Oklahoma City after being up 2-1 in that series.
That's a great point, but let me say this about that series. The Oklahoma City Thunder, and I mentioned this in other videos, the Oklahoma City Thunder that season in 2015-2016, they won something like 54 or 55 games, and they blew no less than 18 or 19 double-digit leads in the fourth quarter that season. That was a 67, 68 win, maybe even 70 win quality team had they had a smarter point guard running their squad. That team was so talented. They were far more talented than the Golden State Warriors. It's just that when the going got tough, Golden State showed that the disparity in basketball IQ between themselves and Oklahoma City was as wide as the physicality level and the overall physical talent level between Oklahoma City and Golden State. That's why Golden State was able to come back from down 3-1.
The next game.
But just to get back to the point, that Thunder team, they underachieved in the regular season with just 55 wins.
Game after the next season after that, they won. Kawhi Leonard played 9 games because he was injured, and ever since then he's here in Toronto, and so we're seeing something now. So there has been no evidence, none, whatsoever, to compare him to Kobe in terms of being a clutch player. And I'm not talking last 2 minutes or a particular game-winning shot or something like that. I'm talking about overall having to carry a load. This is really the first time that we've seen Kawhi Leonard have to carry. Wait a minute, because I'm talking clutch and I'm talking about who he is when you're going to compare him to Kobe Bryant. And
if you're expanding the definition to say, can you carry the team through the...
Once again, Max Kellerman, you made a mistake in how you worded the question. The question should have stated, is Kawhi a more proficient player than Kobe Bryant, not a better pressure player? What Max Kellerman did was look up a bunch of stats especially pertaining to the playoffs, and he said to himself, Kawhi has better stats in the playoffs than he has in the regular season. So I'm going to make the case that he's a better pressure player than Kobe is. Max, with his predictive programming mind, as well as his penchant for hyperbole, said to himself, I'm going to make a splash on First Take by asserting that Kawhi is a better pressure player than Kobe. And you just can't say that right now. We don't have enough data.
Because when you say...
You're the one that always says, this is where I want to go with this. This is what I want to talk about.
If you're
so
expanding
now that
the
I have the
definition of
temerity
clutch...
to bring that up, we got a problem.
Well, first of all, if you really want to drill down, the MVP of the finals the first 3 times was Shaq.
Don't say that, Max Kellerman. The Kobe Bryant fanboys, they get upset. They'll claim that Kobe was actually the better player, even though Shaq got the MVPs.
In the next 3 that they went to consecutively, Kobe was the MVP once, and he deserved it. Yes, and the next time, he did win the MVP, and he carried a lot of the load in the pivotal Game 7 against the Boston Celtics. If it wasn't for Meta World Peace bailing them out,
Thank you, sir.
They lose. Meta was the offensive scorer.
Stop right there. I didn't hear you saying that about LeBron when Ray Allen hit the 3.
I was going to say that.
Well, I've said that. I'm consistent.
Say that.
I didn't hear you say that then.
Wait.
See, this is
I'm
where
not
your
talking about
arguments get
hitting
consistent.
one.
And let me say this, to Max Kellerman's point, even though Stephen A. Smith is making a relatively decent point about LeBron James, at least LeBron James had a very good statistical game in that Game 6 against the San Antonio Spurs. He still needed to get his ass saved by Ray Allen, but at least he was starting to come on in the latter part of the third into the fourth quarter. Kobe Bryant was terrible offensively for that entire game in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics in 2010. Horrific.
I'm not talking about hitting one big shot.
just
And I'm
brought it
also,
up. That's
and I'm
what
also
Meta
not
World
meant,
Peace
and
did.
we're not also talking about LeBron's clutch ability here. We're comparing 2 players, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you brought up that the Spurs didn't repeat as champions, and that was Kawhi's team. So you're expanding the definition of clutch, and I'm saying, okay, let's look into it. First 3 were Shaq MVPs in the finals. The next 3, Meta bailed them out in Game 7, and then they lost to the Celtics in a different series. So it's not Michael Jordan. No one except Jordan did it every single time. We're comparing Kawhi to Kobe, and the reason you're...
Look at Jay Williams. Jay Williams is looking around like a damn crackhead.
You're saying what your eyeballs tell you is because Kobe is maybe the best bad shot maker of all time. So it's memorable that he hit impossible...
Jay Williams looking at his phone.
Shots under pressure.
Wait a minute. I'm not
Stephen
denying
A.
that.
Stephen A.
Go ahead, Jay.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to do
You're right.
that. No, it's okay.
We're right. We
I'm
can't
gonna-
help
I'm-
you, man.
I have to go.
We can't help
No,
you.
I can't talk about that.
We can't help.
I can't talk about
We really
that.
can't.
I
We
can't
can't
talk
help
about that.
We can't help you because we're
because
just seeing
you-
Kawhi carry something
That
for the
is
first
true.
time,
If
and
you
you're gonna bring up
insist-
Kobe.
If
Really?
you insist on just asserting your opinion and you can't back it up with facts, then
Hey,
sure.
you haven't.
Sure.
Jay asked you.
You're gonna
Jay
get up
asked
and
you
walk
for-
away next.
Jay asked you
Undefeated.
for a clutch moment, and you haven't provided it.
Sure.
Jay asked you for it, and you haven't provided it.
Right, a finals
Who's the
MVP
one-
is not
who's
enough
the one
clutch
devoid of
moments.
evidence?
What you
That
guys
would be you.
want, is the iconic moment where he hit an impossible shot under pressure.
And what guys like you want
Kawhi
is
is
a
not
bunch
hitting
of folks
impossible
that
shots.
rely on numbers to
He's
tell us
getting
about
himself
the game of
high
basketball,
percentage
but y'all
shots.
don't really know it.
He's getting.
Oh, boy. Stephen A. Smith, when he gets upset, it's so funny, man.
He's getting himself high percentage shots. Tell me the iconic moments that Bill Russell had. Bill Russell won every Game 7 he ever played. You know why? Because the team that had Bill Russell won. Because he was clutch. His team functioned better with him on the floor.
Once again, Max Kellerman's definition for clutch is that you perform better and your team performs better, that you raise your game during the highest stakes or in the highest stakes. Stephen A. Smith and Jay Williams, they're thinking about Kobe Bryant hitting game-winning shots.
Hold it. So they didn't function better with Kobe on the floor when Kobe won back-to-back titles without Shaq?
He
Or
was
went
the
to 3
best
straight
player.
NBA finals?
I'm not arguing Kobe's a bad clutch player. We're comparing him to Kawhi so far.
Wait. What? That's what I just did. I didn't sit up there and say you said. Who said that you said Kobe was a bad player? Tell me where that came from. Tell me where that came from.
First of all,
Since you want to put words, tell us who said that.
I inferred from what you just said that you're saying it.
You are false. I did not imply that. I did not imply that. I implied that you need to take a basketball basketball history class.
Do you realize?
I applied that.
Do you realize
but I did not
that
imply that you said Kobe was a scrub?
Remember a couple years ago when Memphis was still pretty good and they thought, oh, they match up well with the Spurs and can the Spurs beat them? It was early in the playoffs and Kawhi maybe had like one of the greatest, not maybe, certainly had one of the greatest postseason series in the history of basketball. Like, do you really...
Yeah, I almost forgot about that now that you mention it. Yeah, Kawhi was exceptional in that series.
Really want me to pick out series for you where Kawhi was clearly the best player in the league?
No one said that Kawhi Leonard is not a phenomenal player. Nobody said that. What I am saying is he has never, ever, ever fulfilled the role of carrying the load that Kobe had to carry. When he does it, come talk to us. Until he does it, don't act like he did it.
Well, let's do it.
That's what we're saying.
Well, this current playoffs is definitely going to weigh a lot in the balance of determining exactly where Kawhi Leonard is going to be ranked amongst this current generation of players. And that in and of itself is going to provide a lot of the data that Kawhi and many of his proponents are going to need when engaging in debates between himself and Dwayne Wade or himself and Kobe somewhere down the line. But right now it's just way too early. Way too early.
Let's do it another way.
Oh, let's do it another way. Please.
Well, remember when people were trying to argue Kobe was going to be the greatest player of all time?
Yes, I do. It was laughable.
And they tried to match him up his pace with Jordan. He entered the league earlier, so he had a head start. But they were like, by this age, Jordan hadn't won all these championships. Jordan also hadn't played with Shaq, and Pippen wasn't an all-star at that age. Let's match him up ages. When Kobe was 26, 27, had he won a finals MVP yet? Because Kawhi has. When you talk about Kobe carrying a team to a championship, he hadn't done it at Kawhi's age yet. He did it after that. So if you want to line him up, if you turn it into a career accomplishment...
Stephen A. losing his mind. He got that LeBron smile on his face.
There's no argument. Kobe had a whole career. Kawhi hasn't. If you match him up at similar points...
Stephen A. breathing hard now. These are the different phases that a fanboy goes through whenever they confront it with facts about, the object of their desire, their idol.
Points in their career, yeah, Kobe wasn't as clutch as Kawhi.
First of all, Kobe and Shaq, for example, Shaq didn't win a championship until he played. He played for Phil Jackson. Kobe didn't win a championship until he played for Phil Jackson. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen didn't win a championship until they played for Phil Jackson. We get all of that, but the flip side to it is this. You have to take systems into consideration. You have to take the obligations that have been thrusted upon you. Shaq is your teammate. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, they could do stuff on both ends. They could do stuff on the perimeter. They could do stuff in the open court.
Stephen A. Smith, you're really just making Max Kellerman's point for him because you're trying to correlate the greatness of a player with a coach. We know that Kobe Bryant never accomplished shit without Phil Jackson. I mean, he barely made the playoffs without Phil Jackson. At least Michael Jordan was able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals before Phil Jackson became the head coach. Right now, Kawhi Leonard had great success with Greg Popovich, and he's in the midst of having great success with Nick Nurse, who's a neophyte as a head coach. So you're really making Max Kellerman's point for him.
Shaquille O'Neal, you got to feed the beast down low. You're playing a different system.
You're arguing it's hard to win with Shaq?
Thank you, sir.
No. What I'm saying is that if Phil Jackson wants you to play a certain role, he wants you to play a certain role. At the end of the day, Kobe did it. Why did he want Shaq going? He wanted to prove what he could do, and he did it.
I'm happy that Stephen A. Smith stated that Kobe Bryant wanted Shaq gone, because to this day I still get a bunch of Kobe Bryant fanboys who allege that Kobe is not the one who ran Shaq out of town when he did.
So what I'm saying to you is, what I'm saying to you is, come to me when Kawhi actually does it. Don't count what he did with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker to be in comparison to what Kobe did. Don't do that. That's my point.
Now you're using the he had more help argument.
Wait a minute. When Kawhi did that with the Spurs were not considered on talent far and away the best team.
Thank you, sir. I've had this discussion with a lot of these guys, even some of the LeBron James fanboys. They've tried to now, normally their argument is, well, LeBron has gone up against the Golden State Warriors super team. I've had some of these dudes claim, well, LeBron went up against the Spurs super team. They had Tony Parker and Ginobili and Tim Duncan. All of a sudden, the Spurs were a super team now.
Best team in the universe.
They
Tim
were
Duncan
incredibly.
was on.
Hold it,
Tim Duncan was on. No, I'm in the middle of something. Tim Duncan was on the downside.
They were incredibly formidable with Popovich's system in San Antonio.
And so were the Lakers incredibly formidable. They were the favorites to win the title because they had 3 7-footers.
Thank you, sir. I've said this many times. The Lakers were thought of as having the best front court in the NBA. This is not even counting Kobe Bryant. In the late 2000s, when they had Lamar Odom, Andrew Bynum, and Pau Gasol, it was thought that they had the best front court in the entire NBA. But supposedly, Kobe Bryant won a couple of championships with bums.
Yeah, 2 7-footers who were both close to all-star level, or at least Bynum was on his way up. Now Bynum is a joke at the time.
Don't make that face, Stephen A. Smith. We all know that at one point there was a debate over who was the best big man in the NBA. Was it Andrew Bynum or Dwight Howard? That was a debate.
At the time, he was considered one of the better big men in basketball, and Pau Gasol is a Hall of Famer. Pau Gasol was closer to MVP level than people realize. Don't act like the Spurs, when Kawhi won, were more favorites than the Lakers were when Kobe won with Pau.
Excuse me, with Bynum was prone to injury, and his health was consistently questionable because of his knees. Of course, Pau Gasol was a damn good player.
Damn good player. Hold up, time out. When Kawhi won the championship as the MVP, there was no one on the Spurs at that time in their careers as good as Pau was with the Lakers when that's right.
I can't agree with that one. Tim Duncan has always been better than Pau. There's never been a point in Pau Gasol's career where he was better than Tim Duncan. No, sir.
It's good enough. Matt Kellerman, go to commercial. I'm done. Done with you. We ain't talking basketball no more. I'm done with you.
No
I'm done.
commercials, you guys.
You want to compare Tim Duncan on the downside to Pau in his prime?
I am done with you. I'm done. Go to commercial. I ain't talking this with you no more.
We can't go to commercial.
By the way, you can walk away like Jay Williams, but you can't be saved by the bell. You can't be saved by the bell. This ain't football. This is boxing. You can't sub out.
If you're done.
You want the ref to stop the fight?
Max, you are
Mom,
absolutely right.
you better come and stop this.
You guys want
I need to be saved by you with your ignorant basketball
This is
stuff.
Crawford
Oh my
Con, too.
God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Kurt, please put me on camera. We're gonna transition here. All right.
That's 2 KOs in one segment.
I agree, Max Kellerman. You got 2 knockouts. You got 2 knockouts in one segment. But your last point about Pau Gasol being better than Tim Duncan, no, sir. There's no point in Pau Gasol's career where he was ever better than Tim Duncan.
We can't go to commercials. There's more show to do.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. I just saw this debate. I found it very humorous. I also found it rather insightful because I do see where Max Kellerman was trying to go with it, even though I believe that he worded the question wrong. What he sees when he looks at Kawhi is a player who's almost like a streamlined version of Kobe. Kawhi is like Kobe if he made 10 times better decisions, had huge hands, and was patient. So I agree with Max. I think that peak Kawhi, if Kawhi continues to trend in the direction in which he's trending, peak Kawhi, which is going to be the next 5 or 6 years, will be better than peak Kobe was. Yes, he will. I can already see the Kobe Bryant fans spontaneously combusting. Oh well. Peace.